I said I don't want my mother-in-law in my doctor's appointment. It started when I was about 7 months pregnant with my first kid. My husband Jake and I were living in this tiny apartment about 20 minutes from his parents' house. His mom Patricia had always been super involved in his life, like calling him 3 times a day and showing up unannounced with casseroles kind of involved. But when she found out I was pregnant, she went completely overboard. She started buying baby stuff without asking us, rearranging our nursery when we weren't home, and worst of all, she kept insisting she needed to come to all my doctor appointments. Every single one. She said it was because she wanted to be there for her grandchild, and that first-time moms need all the support they can get. At first, Jake thought it was sweet. He kept saying stuff like, oh, she just wants to help, and she's excited to be a grandma, but I was getting seriously annoyed. Like, these are my private medical appointments. I don't need my mother-in-law hearing about my cervix and hemorrhoids. The breaking point came when I was having some weird cramping one night. It was probably nothing, but Jake insisted we go to the emergency room just to be safe. I was in my pajamas and flip-flops, feeling gross and worried, and all I wanted was to get checked out quickly and go home. We called Patricia to let her know where we were going, thinking she'd just say, okay, keep us posted. But no, she showed up at the hospital 15 minutes after we did, still in her church clothes from some evening service, carrying this massive purse and acting like she was the patient. The nurse called my name, and I stood up to go back. Patricia stood up too. I looked at her and said, I'm sorry, but I'd like to go in alone. She looked at me like I just told her the sky was green. She said, but honey, I drove all the way here and I'm so worried about the baby. I tried to be polite. I said, I really appreciate you coming, but this is between me and my doctor. That's when she turned to Jake and said, tell your wife she's being ridiculous. Jake just stood there looking uncomfortable. The nurse was waiting and other people in the waiting room were starting to stare. Patricia actually tried to follow me through the doors to the back. I had to physically block her path and say, no, you cannot come with me. She started crying right there in the emergency room lobby, saying I was keeping her from her grandchild and that she had every right to be there. Jake finally spoke up and told his mom she needed to sit down and wait. She spent the next hour texting him, constantly asking for updates while I was getting examined. The doctor could hear my phone buzzing from across the room. Everything was fine with the baby, just some normal pregnancy stuff. But when we came back out to the waiting room, Patricia jumped up and demanded to know exactly what the doctor said. She wanted to see my discharge papers. She asked if I was taking my vitamins correctly and whether I was getting enough rest. I was exhausted and hormonal and I just lost it. I told her that my medical information was none of her business and that she needed to stop acting like this was her pregnancy. She started crying again and said I was being cruel and that she was just trying to help. The whole drive home she followed our car, calling Jake and crying about how mean I was being to her. When we got to our apartment, she tried to come inside to talk about it. I went straight to bed and Jake dealt with her for another hour. The next day she called and apologized, but then immediately asked when my next appointment was and whether she could come to that one instead. I had to explain to her that none of my medical appointments were her business and that if she kept pushing this boundary, I was going to have to limit her involvement in other areas too. She sulked for about a week and told everyone in their family that I was keeping her away from her grandchild.